Hi, this is Darius Hill, and we're going after Davidson Wildcats this week. You're now watching the Marist Football Network.
Welcome back to another episode of the Marist Football Network. I'm Matt Suter. To my left is Mike Quinn, and as always, we're joined by Rachel Blair and Amanda Mastro-Birdie on the floor. And if you're wondering, Mike and I did not plan on matching ties. This week, Mike sits down with juniors Nick Monero and Bart Lenahan. Phil joins us later in studio with an interview with Darius Hill, and then Mike and I wrap it all up with analysis for this week's game against Davidson. Last Saturday, the Red Foxes fell at home to Jacksonville 21-9. It was a hard-fought contest. The defense played very well for Marist. Unfortunately, 2 of the touchdowns for Jacksonville came after Marist fumbled and turned the ball over inside their own 10-yard line. However, the defense, again, very strong as they allowed under 300 yards of total offense to the Dolphins after they put up 700 in their previous week's game. Mike, some very quick thoughts about Marist this week against Jacksonville.
Well, like you said, I think we had a very strong showing by the defense this weekend. They only let up 228 yards to a very high-powered offense in Jacksonville. Obviously, we know that their quarterback has been named Offensive Player of the Week already this season. So I think it was very commendable of the defense this week. Offense, however, I think they struggled at times. They really couldn't get the ball rolling. They only had one successful drive for a touchdown. They also had a successful drive for a safety, which we'll hear about later in the interview.
Speaking of that interview, Mike sat down earlier this week with junior safety Nick Monero and junior wide receiver Bart Lenahan. Let's take a look.
Nick, last week Coach Rumsey said that Jacksonville had 6 offensive weapons. How are you able to contain all 6 of them? Do you focus on them individually, or do you just see them as a group as a whole?
As a team, we went out there and we just focused on playing our game. And I think that's the most important thing we do week in and week out. We know we're a physical and fast defense, and we can pretty much hang with anybody as long as we get our assignments down.
Bart, now let's move to the offensive side of the ball. You had trouble getting drives going on Saturday. What was the major issues you guys had trying to get the ball downfield?
We made too many mistakes. Like personally, like we had, 5 turnovers, 3 fumbles, 2 interceptions. That kind of hurt us and stopped our drives. We had penalties that would bring us back after we'd get a big play. We'd have to get negated by a penalty, then we'd get another penalty, and so our kind of drives started stalling. But the drives that we did have that we were successful on, we were able to string together good plays, big plays, and then able to get in the end zone and take time off the clock. And we wanted to sustain drives throughout the whole game to keep Jacksonville's offense off the field.
Now, all season you guys have had issues with turnovers. You had 5 on Saturday. What have you guys been doing in practice to try to improve keeping the ball on the offense and not giving the ball away?
We're going to put 2 hands on, expect the contact, and make sure we're not fumbling ever, and making sure that if we're going to get hit, we can go down or not take the unnecessary hits that might cause a fumble.
All right, Nick, now let's look to this weekend against Davidson. They're coming off a loss 42-0 to San Diego, and they are also a pass-heavy offense. So what are you doing in practice to prepare for this?
Well, we played them last year, and they kind of had their way with us at times in the secondary. I think this week we're going to focus on being more physical and getting back in our pass coverage and kind of feeling out the quarterback and making sure that we can read, make his reads, and kind of just undercut his passing routes and just be physical and play fast.
Bart, the same question for the offense. What's practice been like for you guys trying to prepare for Davidson this weekend?
Basically just doing the same thing that we have been doing in the past, making sure that we're working on our routes and our depths and getting open like that. Hopefully we're going to be able to run the ball a little bit better this week and get our offensive line getting a push forward and having good pass protection, because as receivers I think that we can beat almost anybody down the field.
All right, you guys have been home for 2 weeks. You feel the comforts of home, but now you got to go back on the road again this weekend to North Carolina to go face Davidson. Is it going to be tough adjusting to get back on the road, or are you guys ready?
I think it would be fine. I actually enjoy traveling. Fun. It's a good way to bond with the team. And when we get there, it's strictly business, no matter what field we're on. I know playing at home, we have a sense of pride, and we try to keep that, and playing a little bit more physically and we're tougher. But every game you go out, you want to play your best, and usually, for the most part, we do. And so I don't think there's going to be much of a difference.
Yeah, I think that when you go on the road, even when you're at home, you want to protect the house, but when you're on the road, you want to win maybe a little bit even more.
All right, Mike, thank you for that interview. After sitting down with those 2 guys, was there one big idea that you took away after talking with them?
Yeah, I think from both players, I really got an understanding that they feel if they follow the game plans that the coaches make during the week and they can follow and stick to those game plans, they'll be successful.
So that was Nick Monero and Bart Lenahan. Now we send it over to Phil Torino, who's joined in studio by junior linebacker Darius Hill.
Thanks, Matt. We're pleased to be joined now by Darius Hill, and there's plenty of football for us to discuss. But before we jump directly to that, there's more of a pressing issue. Us humble folk at the Marist Football Network have a meager 220 followers on Twitter. Darius, we checked this morning. You have 810. Tell us, please, what we're doing wrong.
Well, where I'm from in Maryland, Twitter is actually it's actually more popular than Facebook.
Okay.
So I ended up having more followers because if you think about it, you probably have about 500 to 600 Facebook friends.
Right.
So all my Facebook friends are actually my followers.
Okay.
Because it's we've used it for years now. I've had it for like 3 or 4 years. That's why I have so many followers compared to the 210.
Okay, because our ratio is really thrown off. We're following in the ballpark of like 600 people, and we're only getting love back from 220. Is it too late for us, or can we fix this?
You can fix it. You can just ask them to follow you. I mean, send them a tweet saying, hey, I'm following you. You can follow me back. That'd be greatly appreciated.
We'll have Matt Suter stay on top of that. He's our social media guru. But changing gears a bit now, Darius, you transferred from Towson, which is a team in the CAA conference. 8 of the teams in that conference are ranked now in the top 25 in the FCS. From what you've seen, how does the level of play stack up between the PFL and the CAA?
Well, Towson, when I was in the CAA, we did play a lot of tough teams. I mean, we got opportunities to play teams like Northwestern and Indiana. But at the same time, in the PFL, you still have to line up across from somebody that's just been working as hard as you all their life playing ball. So it's about the same. I mean, it's a little bit of a size difference, I'd say. But other than that, everybody plays just as hard as the next guy.
And how about just in the first 5 weeks alone? I mean, the season opener against Sacred Heart, which is, of course, a non-conference game. And then just a few weeks after that, you've seen Dayton and Jacksonville, some teams that really can throw the football, defensively speaking, as a linebacker. Did you notice that right away?
Oh, yeah, I definitely did. It's more of a passing league here, whereas if in the CAA, it's more of we'll spread you out, then try to run the ball. It seems like in the PFL, they try to spread you out and just run and gun. It's more of a just quick passing down the field.
And you mentioned some quick passing attacks. This linebacking unit, we talked to defensive coordinator Scott Rumsey on a weekly basis, and he explained to us that this is a unit that is very quick and a lot of guys see action. Did you notice that as well?
Yes, he tries to keep us fresh. We have a good depth of linebackers. We're all solid at the 1s and 2s. We even have some 3s that are pretty good. So he tries to keep us fresh and rotating us a lot.
And what do you think is crucial for Marist as it heads now into the meat of its schedule? You'll see, of course, Davidson this week, and then moving on later to Valparaiso, Campbell, a few home games. What's crucial for the defense to do?
Consistency. I mean, we've had games where we've pretty much shut down offenses, then we've had games where we haven't shut down an offense. So this week we're going into it with a mindset to have consistency.
And speaking about the Davidson Wildcats in particular, what is your unit expecting from their offense?
A lot of crossing routes, a lot of shallow passes. So this is a big game for the linebackers to knock off routes and receivers. So as long as we do our job, we'll be in good shape.
Do you feel that in the contest that Marist has had so far, all the defensive guys have been prepared for what you'll have to square up and face every down?
Oh, yeah, we're definitely – Coach Rumsey does a good job of putting us in position, so it's just our job to execute. He always has a well-thought-out game plan. We know exactly what we have to do. So as players, we just have to execute from there.
And now I'm curious, Rory Foley, of course, was a 4-year starter here. He's now working with the tight ends, and he played in the secondary.
Yeah.
Does he still advice from him trickle down to the linebackers?
Oh, yeah, definitely. He always tells us to be more physical with receivers. He tells us how tight ends hate to be hit. He's always involved in the defensive side, even though he's coaching tight ends.
And just finally for you, Darius, talk to us a bit about the atmosphere and the personalities on this team. Is this a group that you enjoy being a part of?
Oh, yeah, I definitely enjoy being a part of this group. I mean, we all work hard. We all have that mindset to want to win. We all are just involved with each other, and we all take care of each other, which is the most important thing.
Darius Hill, thanks very much for the time, and best of luck to you and the rest of the squad this week against Davidson. Back to you, Matt.
Phil, thanks a lot, and thanks to Darius Hill as well. Now let's turn to this week's game against the Davidson Wildcats, who enter this week with a 2-2 record and an 0-1 record in the PFL after falling to San Diego 42-0 on Saturday. Mike, Both teams average less than 50 rushing yards a game. How important will this be for the flow of the game?
Well, I think the flow of the game is going to be very slow this week because there's going to be mostly passing and not a lot of rushing. And both of the teams are very even with the passing game. Marist has 1,158 yards so far this season passing. Davidson has 1,337. So I think you can see a lot of play calls, a lot of strategy, not just trying to pound the ball with the running game. So I think it's going to be a very strategic game through passing.
Mentioning the passing game, neither team really has a poor pass defense. They're actually very good pass defenses. How will that affect the game? Because we will see much more passing, and will Marist turn to a new quarterback after Tommy Riley struggled last week?
Well, I think we're going to see two very tired defenses because a lot of the secondaries be running a lot of routes, covering the wide receivers because of the heavy passing game. Also, I think Marist will be the stronger defense this weekend because I feel like they're hungrier. They're coming off a 21-9 game with Jacksonville, which they were very successful in. And also, last weekend, Davidson lost 42-0 to San Diego. So I think they got beat up last weekend. I think Marist is hungrier. They're more prepared, and they're ready to get a win this weekend. In terms of quarterback, I think they need to go with Looney this weekend because the offensive line has not been up to par. Looney is the quicker quarterback. If he sees that there's going to be pressure, he can run out, make a second read, and get the ball downfield for hopefully a successful drive for the Red Foxes.
You mentioned that the offensive line has struggled. There has been a lot of pressure on the quarterback. That in turn has led to 10 interceptions given up by Marist, and they've also had 7 lost fumbles, so 17 turnovers in 5 games. How can Marist combat turning over the ball so much?
They need to treat the football like it is the winning Powerball ticket. We heard in the interview, Lenahan said that wide receivers have a new policy that they need to have 2 hands on the football at all times. And even if they have 20 yards of open field and everybody's 10 yards behind them, I still want to see them having 2 hands on the football, protecting it like it's $1 million because the turnovers have been absolutely killing the Red Foxes.
And now sort of shifting to the flow of the game, the momentum of the game. Marist has been outscored 35-0 in the first quarter this year. Of course, they have lost 4 straight games. How do you think that affects the team's morale when they get on the field and when they look up in the second quarter, they've still been shut out?
Well, we saw it in the Georgetown game. On the opening drive, Georgetown did score 7 points, and then the Red Foxes were unable to come back until later in the game. And I feel like once the Red Foxes lose that momentum, it's very tough for them to bring it back. Even after halftime and halftime adjustments, they still need to be able to get that momentum in the beginning of the game to be successful.
All right, so that does it for this week's show. You can check us out online at www.maristfootballnetwork.com, and you can follow us on Twitter at MaristFN. For Mike Quinn, Phil Trino, Amanda Mastroberti, and Rachel Blair, I'm Matt Suter. Marist kicks off at Davidson at 1 o'clock. Thanks for tuning in.